I've cut it off quickly. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Because it says, over to your hosts. And of course, we aren't, it isn't a normal service tonight. Tonight we are in conversation with this lovely young man over here. And this lovely lady here is Pat Campbell, who is Jean's stepmom and is staying with us at the caravan for a few days and has never seen anything like this before, so she's fascinated by it all. And we are now broadcasting out across the multiverse to anybody who wishes to tune in and listen. And today we are being very philosophical, aren't we, dear?
We're being Phillies. There's nothing wrong with being Phillies.
Philosophical.
Philosophical, yes, that's it.
But if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Brown, Reverend Brown, would you mind opening us up in prayer just so we can set the intonation for tonight's gathering?
Absolutely, of course.
Thank you.
Well, hello, Tony. Hello, Pat. Hello, everyone. And let's, live from the Boudoir Del Brown in the Chateau Del Nick.
Yes.
Let us join together in prayer as we say, Great Spirit, Father, Mother, God, we thank you for the opportunity to come together as friends, to work in your love and your light, and to witness the truth that there is more to life than just which we see with our eyes and hear with our ears. Let us remember, Great Spirit, that all the work that is done in your name is done with love, with truth, with light, with humility, and also with the hope and the certainty that all we do is for the betterment of the human world. And so as we place this evening in your care and keeping, we make and reiterate that statement, that everything we do will be in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Nick. That was lovely. Nick and I have been talking on and off for quite a while now about a lot of people come to spiritualist centres, and there's nothing wrong with it, to hear the messages. And that's lovely, because everything that is given in the name of mediumship, in the name of spirit, are words from spirit. It's the philosophy from spirit. And whether you receive a message or not, you're sitting in the company of spirit, hearing the words that spirit are delivering, hearing the guidance that spirit are offering people. And it's not just really the person the message is directed at. The teaching of spirit can be accepted by anybody. And we were talking about a philosophy of spirit. And Nick said, we had an on-screen discussion, did we not, dear? And I said, well, this is my vision for my church, which is all these lovely people's names which are scrolling up, and welcome everybody. And there's some names going up that I don't recognise, so welcome as well. And I set out what I would see as the vision, the teaching that I would like to come through. And Nick went, "You're not going to believe this. Let me read you something." And it was almost verbatim. I couldn't believe it. It was almost verbatim what I'd said. And he said, this just shows that this is obviously coming directly from spirit, because between us, we could not have come up with that separately.
Exactly. And the amazing thing was, I'd literally finished writing that less than 12 hours before our conversation. It was I was doing my usual devotional, my writing homilus for the Littleport Life magazine, and I liked it so much I decided to expand it and replace the first chapter of my book. And see, I'm going northern already, darling. My book, I replaced the first chapter of my book, and then of course you sent me this message, can we have a chat? And I said, well, yeah, I'm free in the morning, no worries, I just wanted to get it done. And of course then we spoke, And there it was, this absolute comparison. And you're absolutely right, Tony. There is absolutely nothing wrong with people just wanting messages. And as far as the validation of the philosophy is concerned, it's absolutely essential, because at the end of the day, we can give everyone these lovely flowery words and these wonderful ways of living, but can they actually verify and prove that we've given that from spirit? They need something more validatable and verifiable to confirm that what comes out of our mouths isn't just something we learn out of a book, or that has been passed on. It has to be something that they would not only understand, but recognize, and in many cases be so absolutely personal that no one other than the individuals involved could know it. And those individuals are those in the world of spirit. And so we verify our philosophy. We don't just sit there and say, here's 27 books that were written 2,000 years ago. This is your truth. Get on with it. We say, this philosophy has been given to those that we work with in the world of spirit that wish to have an input in our lives. But we can verify and prove to you that we're getting that information by saying, Uncle Tom's reminding you that your clock doesn't work, or your dad's telling you about a compass, or Auntie Agnes is reminding you that the motorbike needs turning over every now and again. All of these wonderful things.
Or indeed, Nick, your dad's telling me about he's got his false teeth now.
Absolutely. I mean, it was a very, very well known in the family, but definitely not well known outside of the family, that the hospital lost Dad's false teeth. We never did find them. They said everything was in the bag, but those teeth were not in that bag. His teeth never came home. And yourself, a couple of other mediums have made reference to these false teeth. And, you know, it's just those silly, what would be perceived by others as silly little things, but it's the silly little things that you don't talk about. It's the silly little things that matter, so that the serious and important things like the philosophy can be verifiable and can say, look, this is what we get from your aunt, your uncle, your grandma, your great granddad, everyone. But they're also telling us that we should do this. And that gives it that power, that gives it that support, and it gives it that verification.
Yeah. I just want to pick up one of the bits you put in your book. Where was it? There it is. The messages given of kindness and freedom are the messages and teachings of the heavenly realms. And these are messages we share and, more importantly, practice in Christian spiritualism, which is exactly what we're saying. It's the messages of kindness and the messages of freedom, but they're also teaching. They're also the teachings of the heavenly realm that come through. And I don't think a lot of people really understand that as being philosophy, but it is. It's the teachings of the spirit realm. And it's them having their input of, yeah, you're doing okay. You know, you're doing okay, you're ticking along. Or, well, maybe things aren't going quite right at the minute and perhaps you should think about. But that's the other thing for me, that when spirit give their input, we have that thing of free will. We have that thing of free will. We're not driven by the dictates of anything. It's the free will that we have. Spirit can tell us, guide us, inspire us, but they can't make us do anything. Absolutely.
At all. I'll be honest with you, and I know we were talking before, so Pat will completely understand this. I had to reread the chapter a couple of times today in order to know we were talking about it. Because I can very rarely remember anything that I've given from spirit, and the philosophy is just the same. And I sat and I re-edited that chapter about 5 or 6 times, but it's still not stuck in there because I live it rather than think it. and I feel it rather than say it. So when it's in word form, I quite often read this like, did I really write that? And then this little voice behind me says, no, I did. And just
Exactly.
reminds me to be a little bit less uppity of myself. But I recall actually that there was a passage that I used in relation to that, where God watches over us like the divine Miranda.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and that particular phrase I did steal, because we do a lot of recycling in spiritualism, I'm aware. But I borrowed that from one of the learnings that I had when I was a child. Well, I say child, certainly younger than I am now. I was in a theatre group, and we did Waiting for Godot. Now,
Mm.
I was really excited because I got the part of Lucky, and I thought, how lucky am I? I've got nothing to say. And then I found out that I was finishing the first act as Lucky with his massive, massive speech of gobbledygook that wasn't gobbledygook.
No, it's not.
Lucky's speech is so poignant and so real. But just like any faith or religion, in particular the way we are treated as spiritualists, Lucky's speech might come across as being either gobbledygook or overcomplicated. But that particular phrase, who qua 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 watches over us like the divine Miranda, who loves us dearly, the divine Miranda, I had to understand what Lucky was saying before I could say it. And that's very much like how we work as mediums. We have to understand what we're giving before we can actually give it. We don't need to know the details, but we have to have an understanding of how what we're saying is going to be perceived by others. And the divine Miranda is basically, God understands that we have free will. He or she or it wishes to have intervention, wishes to be able to cuddle us and hold us and lift us up and help us every 5 minutes. But if God did that, there would be no free will. There would be no point of free will. Free will would be destroyed if we had our backside wiped for us every time something got in a mess. And that is the point of free will. It's a gift that we chose by coming here. But it can also be a curse, because it means we've got to get up on our own 2 feet and do things, and remember that wonderful spiritualist principle that is one of the 8 that we Christian spiritualists have, that of personal responsibility and taking on board that personal responsibility. And I think because the original reason that we spoke about that particular piece was people were asking you, what is the point of religion? And I think they were so, in fact, ironic. The title of that piece was originally, What Point Religion? Because it given me the exact same question to answer for everyone, especially for yourself. And the point of religion is that it's a route map, it's a path. But as it says about, as I alluded to the use of a compass, even if you've got a compass, it doesn't mean to say that you're going to choose to go that particular direction. And I think that's really, really important, because, you know, the Romans did quite a few things that many Christians would find difficult. Quite a few things that a lot of people would find difficult. The one thing they got right is that all roads lead to the same place.
Yes.
We have to remember that as ministers of a religion, of any religion, so long as, and this is the messages of kindness of the heavenly realms, so long as people treat each other with respect, be polite and courteous, help each other when people are in need, be respectful of other people's opinions, God doesn't care how we do that, just that we do. It doesn't matter whether you start with Our Father who art in heaven, or Great Spirit, Father, Mother, God, or Divine Universe and Creator of all. It's a title. Titles don't matter. They are used as an identification of a position that someone holds to help them be found. I think that's the politest way I'm going to answer yesterday's little adventure on Twitter.
Yes.
I knew they'd get it in somewhere, but titles are about helping people identify what something is. Names are what matter, and we choose our own name, really. If someone asks you, who are you? And you say, I'm Tony, well, no, you're not, because somebody else gave you that name. If you were then say, Reverend Tony, well, no, you're not, because someone else gave you that title.
Mm.
What is it that actually makes you you? What is it that's you, that's all of your own, that was not given or alluded to? What is in your heart? That is your faith and your religion and your belief, whether it be an official religion or a faith or belief, because we all need to believe in something bigger than ourselves. The long time ago in science, everyone thought that the Earth was the center of the universe. We know that's not true. However, if the universe is indeed infinite, it actually is. Because as my granddad, bless him, he had so much of an influence over me. And he, you know that age-old question, how long is a piece of string?
Yeah.
He actually answered it for me. He said, it's twice as long as it is from the middle to one of the ends.
I love that answer.
And infinity is the same. If infinity is an unidentified, unidentifiable, unverifiable distance expanding out in all directions, then Tony is the center of his universe. Pat is the center of her universe. Nick is the center of his universe. Religion gives us that control over our own eternal perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It gives us that direction of kindness and love and hope. So we are the center of our universe. But what religion is supposed, and I will use that very carefully, what religion is supposed to do is guide people to ensure that the universe of which you are the center of is a good one.
Yeah. It is very philosophical tonight, Jolene. Very, because that's what it is. That's what it is. And I do like, I've been looking for it actually, but I found it. The bit you put down, faith, religion, and unconditional love still has a great deal to offer humanity when used as a tool for kindness and compassion in the hands of all peoples.
I have edited that now. I haven't changed any words, but I have made italic the all, because that is the most important word in that. And
that was the word that jumped out at me.
Yeah,
in the
absolutely.
All peoples.
Absolutely. And this is the thing. If we are all immortal and indestructible, then we are all equal. We are all united in our fear. We're all united in our drive. We're all united in our compassion. But, you know, one of the bits that I'm working on for the book right now, which is in a later chapter, a much, much later chapter, is answering questions regarding some of the harassment and haranguing we get as mediums and as spiritualists. In particular, 2 Corinthians 11 through till 15, we do get a bit of a smackdown in there, but we actually don't, because if you look at 1 Corinthians 15, the answers are there, and this is the point. And I alluded it actually to it on Thursday in my particularly rampant philosophical debate that particular evening, as I tend to get these days, is that when it comes to any organized religion, people get involved. They have to. But they also tend to muddy the waters with their own ideas. Now, one of the things that I'm working on at the moment is an explanation and an understanding of that one particular bone of contention that we have in all Christian circles, and that of the book of Revelation. In that statement that you just put up there, unconditional love. My love for you is so unconditional. Just imagine how we would look upon a human being who were to consider, I mean, fair dues, I'm an Archbishop of the New Christian Spiritualist Society. I don't think I've ever thrust my authority upon you as one of the ministers, because that's not how I work. As I said in that previous statement, we live the values. But, you know, as your Archbishop, Tony, if I were to say to you, I love you unconditionally, I think you're wonderful, I'm really proud of you, give it another couple of months, I'm going to set fire to your house, I'm going to give you a plague, I'm going to destroy you. How would you really take that? Would that not be a contradiction in terms?
Just a smidge.
Because it blooming well is.
Yes.
It is a contradiction in terms. You know, so how can a being of unconditional love threaten to destroy the vast majority of its creation? The fact is it wouldn't. Because if you look at what Revelation is, if you look at what Revelations says, it basically says one day the world is going to end and we are going to find our place in heaven. That happens to somebody somewhere every single day.
Yeah.
Revelations is the story of our lives. You've got Shakespeare was the most human, a genius with words. Look at what I've said about you know, every so often people bring in a new reset to what philosophy of religion is. Shakespeare actually did try that, believe it or not. The 7 ages of man.
Yeah.
Look at the parallels of the 7 ages of man and then think of 7 trumpets. And you know what? The thing is, somewhere every day, many people fight a battle, they suffer, they have a disease, they die, and they get lifted. And there is evidence scripturally, without, you know, twisting words to one's own ends, where you can find that in actual fact, the end of times is every day for someone. The reason I say that is because when people quote Corinthians at you, they suggest that the final trumpet is that of Revelations. Well, all you've got to do is do a little bit of gentle homework. You see, the book of Revelations is estimated to have been written between 70 and 100 AD or CE. And yet Corinthians 15 was written around 60 to 69 AD. So how could he be referring to a book that hasn't been written yet? And people will say, well, that's the point of divine revelation. But I say this: what's the point of divine revelation if people don't know what the bloody hell you're talking about? One of the things that Jesus taught as a circle leader, because if you look at what he did, he was a medium and a healer who held a circle. He had a circle that he developed and said, right, now go out and set up your own circles and spread the message. Right. So here's the science part. I love this. Right. He would have spoken of things that were understandable to everybody. He would have drawn reference to things that would have been understandable to everybody. Now, back in those days, there was no such thing as Christianity.
No.
It was called Judaism. And they were in exactly the same way as we were, because what he was trying to do was correct the issues of Judaism. Yes, we've got some of it right, but a lot of it, human intervention, rubbish, get rid of it. He gave people an understandable way of understanding scriptures, and his students would have carried on that same tradition. So when you talk of the final trumpet, he would not have been talking about a book that hadn't been written yet. He would have been talking about something that would have been understandable to everyone at the time. What would have been understandable as the final trumpet would have been the final trumpet of Yom Kippur. Now, interestingly enough, this year's Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, starts, I believe, on the 6th of September. That runs for about 2 or 3 days, and then there's 10 days of peace and rest and meditation and completion, and it ends with Yom Kippur. Throughout the whole of those 2 festivals, they blow the trumpets. The final trumpet ends with Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is about, absolutely, he did give people options. And one of those options is eternal life. Because when you talk of the final trumpet, he was talking about an end of one thing and a beginning of a new. The final trumpet is your new year in the world of heaven. In an actual fact, throughout the whole of Corinthians 15, he's talking about the difference between the physical and the spiritual body and how we will be transformed. He even says, how can you say people will not be risen from the dead? Because if you're saying that Jesus is risen from the dead but people aren't, you're wasting your time and you're false prophets. So I like to throw that one in when people throw 2 Corinthians 11 at me, because we've forgotten, as a huge conglomerate mess of people, we've forgotten the basics. Be good to one another, be kind to one another. Everything else is just cherries and dusting and little pieces of fruit thrown into the cake.
He gave us his final commandments, didn't he? These above all else.
Speaking of final words, I've got, speaking of his final words, not necessarily his direct final words, but when he was up on the cross, people say that, I mean, if you look at the Anglican side, so when people say, what are you? Oh, I'm Church of England. Why? Because they told me to put that. Really bothers me. Oh, I love hearing it. Thank you. The thing is, people talk about religion, this and the Anglican Church, which is the Church of England, among other things, say that we are dead in the ground until the final trumpet. I say the final trumpet happens the moment they come to pick you up, which is about 10 seconds after you're gone, if not just before, in some cases. But they say that you don't go to heaven until the final reckoning. What did Jesus say to his fellow prisoners on the cross? I promise you that today we will be in the kingdom of heaven.
He did, yes.
So I'd much rather listen to what he says as opposed to, as Claire put it, those bigots at schools and in other places too. That try and prevent us from having the power of God within us.
Yeah.
Going back to your original point of.
This all comes back to another point I saw you making there, that in your piece, because I had to reread it today, because like yourself, the words come to me as I need them. And it's something you've alluded to there about the church holding the power. Now, I always say a church is more than the 4 walls and a roof and a steeple. A church isn't about me with my collar. A church are the people whose names are going up at the side of the screen. It's led by them. It's their church. And without a congregation, I'm sat 3 times a week talking to myself on a screen with Jean and Irene. And it's the people, both the incarnate and the discarnate people, who are the important people in a church service. And they hold the power for me. They really hold the power for me. And that is important. And it's something that I've been given a word and I don't really want to use it, but in some mainstream religion, the philosophy has been bastardized by those people who want to hold the power and want to hold the control. Maybe not power, control. because
Yes.
lots of people want to feel in control of their lives, their whatever. And if they want to feel in control of their religion, they can sometimes lose sight of what's actually important. And that's, for me, where the issue comes. The problem isn't with the religion, the faith, the theology, whatever you want to call it. The issue is with the people who want to feel like, I need to control this and I need to know what's happening and I need to set the direction of it. You don't need to set the direction. God, Jesus, and Spirit will set the direction for you if you trust enough to hand over the reins and say, okay,
Yes.
okay. And
Absolutely.
but about once a month, I like to just at the end of a service say, look, these nights are for you. They are for you. Are these services fulfilling your needs? If not, tell us, because we can change things. If you want more mediumship, we can do more mediumship. If you want philosophy, we can do philosophy. If you want a Q&A, we'll do a Q&A, because
In actual
it's
fact,
like,
that
it's
exact statement that you're making now is the exact same reason why I'm on this screen right now, because I heard you say it less than 2 weeks ago.
I did. I said it 2
And
weeks
they
ago, and
all
the questions
jumped
that
on
were
you and
coming
said
up,
Q&A.
all of the questions that were coming up from the congregation, who are the centre of the church, really, were saying, but we don't understand what the religion is. You know, Simon, amen, bravo,
Someone quoting Paul in the right way for a change. I love it.
yes.
Simon, I love you.
What matters is the faith in yourself. Look within and trust that God has a purpose for you. Romans 8:28. Hurrah!
I've got to do it again. I know I did it on Thursday,
You
but that
do. Here
logo
it is.
right there,
Yeah.
that logo right there, the New Christian Spiritualist Society logo, there is actually real writing in that book. That isn't just squiggly lines. It is the words of St. Paul talking about the gifts, talking about the gifts of speaking in tongues, the gifts of healing. That emblem is not just a way of identifying what we are and what we do. It's a reminder that no matter what people throw at us and say negative towards us, there is actually really good stuff that is usable as well, that actually backs up what we do, exactly like Simon has just said. There's lots of it, but everyone tends to focus on the junk. I have to admit, I've probably said this before and I'll say it 1,000 times. I absolutely love The West Wing, and I absolutely love when the president that should have been, President Jed Bartlett, takes down a homophobic journalist a peg or two by asking if his deputy and chief of staff, Leo McGarry, insists on working throughout the Sabbath, should I have him killed myself, or should I just call the police to do it? You know, and all of these little things like that. That it goes back to what I was actually going to mention what Jolene said, and it does tie in with everything you've said as well about the congregation being the church. You know, at the end of the day, everyone will interpret things their own way. That in itself is fine. What is not fine is when people use their own interpretations to put other people down.
Amen.
Now, I will continue just briefly. I promise not to do it too long. I will use the example of people being homophobic in the church. That age-old, once again, quote of Paul, the fact that the word homosexuality appears in the Bible, even though it wasn't actually created until 1941 and didn't get usurped into it until 1946. the meaning of those words. This is why when I talk about people learning things, I don't just mean read it and understand it. Look at the history behind it. Like, for instance, earlier, when I talked about, Revelations being, not what Paul was talking about, I didn't go to some big college. I don't have a degree in theology. I don't need to, because there are people around me that I can talk to with knowledge. There is information in abundance available now, so long as you check in and verify what the source is, of course, just like you would in good mediumship. But I mean, my granddad, he was self-taught, and everything spiritually in my early years was his influence. He always used to say to me, even before they did it on the advert, you are your own church. Why? My body's a temple. That's why I leave the boots on the outside. Lots of silly little sayings like that. And one of the things that he used to say to me is that you don't need a formal education to be wise, because knowledge is not wisdom and wisdom is not knowledge. You have to have equal measure of both. And if you want to learn something, pick up a book, because all the books that are used in colleges and universities are readily available for anyone, everywhere. And now, especially on the internet, where you can get these books in PDF form, just make sure people haven't edited them and usurped some words for themselves and their own benefit, of course. But you can find out all of this information for yourself. So anyone can do what I do, have done. You just get inspired by spirit to look in the right direction, and the rest will attend to itself. I'm not special. I'm not clever. I don't have letters after my name. The only ones that ever have been used after my name are basically rude words that people have used to describe me. And I'm not going to go delving too deeply into that one, darlings. But not everyone can learn things. It's just important to either unlearn, which we've been told we must believe, or do not listen when people tell you you must believe. Because, I've always said that the congregation will always vote with its feet. One of the things that we get smacked with as ministry is, you don't have a committee. That's not very democratic. Tell you what, every committee I've ever been involved in has never been very democratic.
No.
It's never been very friendly. It's never been very polite. And it's certainly not had clarity or good intent, just like the knowledge and power of which Simon is referring to. Ministry means that one person is responsible for facilitating. If the people that attend do not like the method of facilitation, frankly and plainly put, they're going to bugger off somewhere else, and we're just going to be sitting there talking to ourselves and contemplating and Mabel, like you said earlier. At the end of the day, people will vote with their feet. So it doesn't matter whether there's a committee or one person. People will decide for themselves whether what you're saying gives them a good conscience, a good heart, and a good understanding of what spirit wants for them. Everything else is just human interruption and, frankly, bull. Growing up, I found I was learning this. Yeah, absolutely. You cannot underpin, the importance of it all enough. And I think a lot of people, especially of my generation, who didn't have the internet, had to, and certainly those that were before us, obviously, had to go out and find that knowledge. Well, I wasn't necessarily inferring you, Tony Dubb.
Certainly didn't have internet when I was growing up. You had to go to the library.
Exactly. You had to have a library card. You had to go and physically walk for it. But it's just everything. You had to go and fight for that knowledge. Now it's more readily available. Some would say that makes people lazy. I say it makes you more with the ability to find stuff.
Yeah. I think
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can understand that. I remember having an argument with our local, because I went to a good Church of England school, darlings. I was good for it. our Church of England school was visited weekly by Reverend Bartle, who was the local Church of England minister, and I was in the same class as his son, actually, funnily enough. And he used to come and do a talk. And bear in mind, this was infant school. No, sorry, I apologise, primary school. So it was up to the age of 11. But he would come once a week and we would listen and he would talk. But one day I just questioned him on something. Once again, I was quoting my granddad. And that particular class was taught by the headmaster. The headmaster tried to shut me down. Reverend Bartle said, hang on a minute, let him talk. I want to hear what he's got to say. And I want the opportunity to try and answer it. And he actually admitted that he couldn't. He couldn't. And the reason he wanted the opportunity to try and answer it is to demonstrate that he did not have all the answers. And yet those in authority who don't like not having all the answers will try and shut down that conversation.
Yeah. I had a similar experience, actually, Nick, because when I was in the third year of comprehensive school, my RE lesson fell straight after my biology lesson. And in biology, we'd done Darwin and the evolution. We won't get Reverend Lynn involved in this conversation. And then I went into RE and something clicked in my head, and I just sort of went, as you do. And our RE teacher, who was also a deacon in the church, said, yes. And I said, well, hang on a minute. Mr. X has just been telling us that we all evolved from microbes that then slithered out onto a rock and then grew. And now a few weeks ago, you told us about this wonderful garden and an apple and hang on, I just can't. And do you know, I was given detention for being insolent.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it made logical sense to me that, well, hang on, you've got one teacher telling me this and another one telling me this. I'm confused.
Yeah, in actual fact, in our case, our humanities department was the same teachers. My humanities department included social history, social science, the evolution of the species, and religious education. And we was taught that we were all made out of clay from this one particular being, and that everything in one lesson. And then about 3 days later, we were being told that we evolved. So no wonder my head's in a bloody mess. But the point is, actually, they can't even get the basics right because it was never an apple.
No.
The fruit of the tree of knowledge was a fig. Because no, seriously, think about it. If you suddenly realize that you are naked and you want to cover yourself up, you're going to grab the first thing to hand,
which is a fig leaf.
And it was a fig leaf because it never specifies a fruit. It was a fig because the fig was the first thing in hand to cover up one's dinky bits in most of our cases. And this is the thing. See, a lot of people really being bashed by teachings and teachers, but that's because they're telling you what they've been told to tell you. And that's the difference.
And it goes back to what we were saying before about people wanting to hold control.
Yes, absolutely.
And not wanting to be questioned about what they perceive to be their truth. Going back to your point of everybody's interpretation. So yes. they are following one interpretation of what is their truth. But my truth's not the same as your truth, even though we follow the same religion and we're both ordained into the same church. My truth will always be slightly different to your truth.
Completely.
I want to flag up
Yes,
Simon's
please
response to
do.
Jolene about, yes, all of your answers, i.e. your truth, is within. You have your own book that leads you to your own truth.
Yes,
And,
absolutely
and
agree.
Pat's truth is very different to Jean's truth, even though Pat's been involved in Jean's life from goodness knows how many years. And it's about, for me, which is what I was saying to you on our call, my ministry is I want to enable you to be the best version of you and to help you to become that which God, Jesus, Spirit wants you to become. And
Yes.
I want you to do what is your best. I will never measure anybody against a yardstick, because
No,
you're setting people up to fail if you do that.
completely agree.
Because you can only achieve what is within you.
Yeah.
And by saying we've all got to live up to this wonderful image and never be tainted by sin, and if you fall over and you don't do everything to the letter of the law as it's written, God's not going to come down and slap you about. He's
No,
going to say, he's going to want you
he's
to
going to
say what
offer a
any
hand and
parent
say, "Get
wants you
your
to
ass back
say.
up." Yeah.
Look, Dad, a boo
Mum.
boo, I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry. I did my best, but I'm human. And
Yeah.
sometimes I make mistakes. I'm sorry. That's it. Job done. You know?
I really, 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 and I think this is probably the root of it all, if the truth be told. I really, really get grumpy when people try and limit God.
Yeah.
And this is the point, people limit God by creating standards and rules and say that God will do this and God will do that. Why would God be so daft to give us free will, knowing that we're poo-poo up now and again, unless
Yep.
we were meant to poo-poo up now and again? You've got another quote, haven't you?
I have. The tools of religion have been used for centuries by humans as a weapon to control us, to isolate us, and to ensure those with power can retain it. Any tool or instrument, just like religion, can be transformed.
Yeah. That is the one bit that I actually remember.
Yeah. And
Because I think I actually used that in a service where I demonstrated it by saying that I was going to whack the medium over the head with a jug of water. Not that I would have done, but I said, look, this jug is filled with life nourishing water. It's a wonderful thing, but if I were to turn around and bash our medium over the head with it, it's not a nice thing anymore.
it's not.
And that's the point, and that really is the root of it all for me. People try and limit and restrict God and unlimited power into the center of their own perceived universe. We
Mhm.
can't do that. We all have that God within the center of our universe, but it's equal in every single center of every single person's universe, equally, fairly distributed. And to
Mm.
turn around and say that my God's better than your God, it's
Mm.
childish, it's
It is.
restrictive, and it's
It is.
idiotic, and you can't. Your truth is your truth. It's like when you're walking down the road and walking through your life, occasionally, I mean, we bumped into each other many years ago, and we were involved in each other's life for a few months, and then we sodded off and did our own thing again, and then suddenly, lo and behold, you came back into the circle in which I exist, and I came back into the circle in which you exist, and our path has gone on longer together this time.
It
But it
has.
doesn't mean to say that our path might not divert in another way somewhere down the road. You bump into people all throughout your life, and that's the same with your own version and path of religion. you
Hmm.
will I basically say spiritualists are the ultimate kleptos, because spiritualism gives you the free will and the opportunity to see the best in everything and keep it, the worst in everything and ditch it.
Mm.
God is
Perfect.
infinite love. Absolutely.
Well, I've been Methodist. I was born and baptized Church of England. I fell out with that. I went to Methodism. I went to evangelical Christianity, and nothing fit. And then I went back to the Church of England, and I got a lot from that, I have to say. And what I got from that was, after I split from my wife and met Michael, and we went back a few years after we'd been together to my mum's for Christmas, and we always went to the Christmas Eve service. And I thought, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen when I walk through this door, you know. After several years of being away and living with Michael, and the vicar flew up the aisle, grabbed hold of me, and went, "Oh my goodness, it's so good to see you." And it was only that time, and he'd said it. I went to church 3 times a week when I was living in Merton, and I only then realised what he said right before communion. If you are in a good relationship with your God, come and take of the table.
Yeah.
And that did it for me. I thought, yeah, it's not about what you say is my relationship with God and what your judgment of my lifestyle is. It's about what God sees of in my heart. And I went and I took communion, and it was, I have to say, it was one of the most moving times I'd had in a church, because that was when I felt my connection to God. And I thought, wow, it's not about the church's judgment. I was worried about what Alan the vicar was going to think of me. And I thought, it doesn't matter. It's completely irrelevant what he thinks of me. He is no more important to God than I am. And that's the point I want to get to each and every person on here today, or who watches in the future. It's not about what Nick thinks of you, what Reverend Lynn thinks of you, what I think of you. It's what God sees in your heart, which is important. And that's what you should be judged on.
Yeah.
That's what you should
in
be
actual
judged
fact, on. The person that judges you is you.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, because, you know, I was shown this a long time ago. I stood on a beach, funnily enough, you know, very similar looking beach to that of the footsteps. And there was these flashes of images and pictures in the sky. And I said, what's going on? Is this is your life spirit style? And they said, sort of. And I said, what do you mean? They said, were you happy with that? I said, well, I remember what you're showing me there, and no, I wasn't. They said, what did you do about it? I said, well, I did this, and this. They said, so why do you still beat yourself up over it? And were you happy with that? Well, yeah, I was. I was really quite. I was really quite proud of that. That was a beach. And they said, so carry on living like that. And it was me. I said, what is actually going on here? And they said, this is what you see. This is where you come when you pass. You relive and review the events of your life that you beat yourself up over. And we sometimes will say, yes, you can do a little bit better. But most of the time, the reason you're beating yourself up over it is because you feel really bad about it. And that's enough.
Yeah.
It's enough. Literally enough as in stop it, and enough as in you've paid your dues. The
Yeah,
person who is the hardest judge of you is you. And
exactly.
you will always be your own worst enemy. So why would, I mean, I've always said that God is the ultimate recycler. I mean, look at what we do with us when we finish. It goes back into dust. And we feed the plants around us and everything, depending on how we're evacuated from the premises.
Yeah,
But the point is, God is the ultimate recycler. If you look, right, this is excellent stuff, like the science bit. If you look at the neurons and patterns of the brain as mapped out by science, the pictures that they make to make it look, this is what they look like.
yeah,
It looks exactly the same as the dark matter artist's impressions that connects all of the universe together. If you look at the veins and capillaries in your hand, they look like the veins and capillaries in leaves.
they do.
If you look at everything in life, it's all a recycled idea. God was the ultimate recycler. So God's there thinking, everything's free will. I've let them get on with it. Who's the best person to judge them? Oh, yeah, them. And, we will give you some help and some guidance and point you in the right direction. If you've been a naughty boy and you don't believe that you've done anything wrong, then you can stay in that grotty little hotel up on the cliff and see your events of your life for all eternity. But you're not going to burn anywhere. You're not going to suffer anywhere. The only suffering, and this is the important bit, the only suffering is the suffering you create for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Descartes that said hell is being locked in a room with your friends. And more accurately, hell is being locked in a room with your own thoughts.
Yeah,
We can all attest to that, some more than others, but especially over the last year and a bit, we all know that hell is being locked in a room with your own, your own thoughts. And I think people forget that.
Simon's on form
Oh,
tonight.
he
And yes, Simon,
really is.
Simon, we know about beaches. I was having a conversation with Simon, and Simon really knows a lot about transmediumship. And I've said it's something I would love to do, to give that ultimate trust to spirit, to say, come on then. And he said, just, find a place where you can be quiet and still, and walking on a beach does it for me. As long as I've got my feet in water, I can do it. And I messaged and said, oh my word, I've just had this wonderful experience on the beach when I felt so connected to everything. It was amazing. Yeah. And it's just what we're talking about. It's the connection of, I said to Pat today, I was telling her about an experience I had. I was sat quietly with the front of the caravan open. It was when there weren't many caravans on this side, and there was a hare sat underneath one of the caravans having a rest. And it was just like one of those moments where it's like, I'm not going to move because this is the perfect moment. And this hare was just sat there having a rest and washing itself, and it settled down and it had a bit of a kip. And I said to Pat, and it's those moments when you think, how can anybody doubt there is a divine thought behind these things? It's just one of those moments when, and it was the moment on the beach when I just went inside my thoughts and I just was letting spirit do their thing, and I felt so connected to the sand, to the trees, to the birds, to everything. And it was just one of those beautiful moments where you're like,
I will never forget the first time, it was one of the few, but the first time I went into trance. And they know that I'm an awkward what's-it, so they give me something to do. My guide Gordon, I'm fortunate enough to have been able to have visited where he would have interacted in the world. And he had an office, and in that office was a piano. And they actually took me into the etheric duplicate of his office, and he just stood there and said, sit at the piano. I thought I was supposed to be doing trance mediumship. He said, sit at the piano. So I sat down, and he says, right, put your fingers on the keys. And he was pressing the keys. He says, do what I do. And he had his hands over my hands, and he was pressing my fingers down in the right place. and it started playing this tune that I recognised. And it got faster, and eventually we were both moving at the same time and playing this tune, and it was Fur Release. Now, the next thing I know, I hear Lynn's voice saying, "Wake up." We'd been playing Fur Release the whole time, but in the physical world, I'd been answering her questions through trance mediumship. Now, the funny thing is, I can't play the piano for Toffee or sherbet or anything for that matter, not even a Hackney Suite. But Lynn's got a piano in her room where we worked, and I just sat there and I was curious because I remembered the placements of the keys that Gordon had been teaching me, and I sat there and I went dun 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 dun, and I just smashed on that last note. It was like dong, and it was kind of like one of those spine tingling moments. Is like, oh my. And it's wonderful, that connection. But once again, it's the location of these places, the location and the methodology is all about what works for you.
Yeah.
So long as it follows that principle of unconditional love and kindness, being good to ourselves and each other, and not lording it up over people. That's all that matters. Really, all that matters.
Yeah.
Isn't that right, Pat?
Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze.
For anyone who's Jewish.
And you can also feel when you're in a garden and you're working in a garden, and you can get that same meditative state of contemplation, and you can really feel the power of spirit around you.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's an amazing thing, and the other thing I'm being inspired to say is that, as well as the number of people that watch our services week in and week out, and I do 3 a week, which is a lot for anybody, and I get consistently high numbers of people viewing. Nick does, Sarah does, and the churches that we're going to are busier than I would have expected after lockdown. The little centre up in Faircroft where Pat lives closed down, I said to Nick, and luckily Jean's, Pat and myself and Irene are going to keep it open. Well, going to open a new group in that same hall at the same time.
Yeah.
Because there's need for it. So people are looking out or seeking out spiritualism.
Yes.
There's something lacking in not lacking in people's lives, that's wrong, I apologise, but people are searching for some truth that they're not finding elsewhere. And our religion, in whatever vein you want to put it, is filling something in people, giving them something. And we are criticised for it by certain aspects, and it's in
actual fact, I believe it or not, I do actively seek out our criticizers, criticizers, and I was reading a passage that had been put in the Baptist News, funnily enough, where they were saying that there is a great danger at the moment. Whenever there has been a huge global difficulty, be it a war or a pandemic, spiritualism always has a huge swelling of numbers. And we should be careful of that because they are evil, scum, demon worshipping what's-its. And I'm thinking, that is exactly the problem why people are leaving you and coming to places like ours. Because you are the center of everyone's universe, and you can't for a second imagine that the reason people are leaving you is because of you and your attitude. And that there is, I know you corrected yourself, Tony, to be polite, but It's true. You only go seeking for something if there is something lacking.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, true. But I didn't mean in their lives. I mean in what they are being given when they are going and looking for comfort, for
Yeah.
something, for guidance, for direction, for a way of connecting with God.
Yeah. But
And
that is
they're
the
being
point, though,
told
Tony. You were
constantly
right
that
with
they are
your initial
wrong
statement.
and they are sinful and
Yeah.
they'll never be good enough. Then they're going to go looking for somewhere else where we go, welcome.
Get your asses in here. Get the kettle on.
Yeah, if you're sky blue, pink with yellow dots and wearing a rainbow wig, we don't care. Come on in, you know?
And say, what is it? Is it Tuesday today?
Yes, it's Tuesday.
Yeah, so it's only 3 days since you could describe yourself in that way.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, though. You know, we can be open and honest about who we are. Because this is the other problem. You know, people are only going to listen to what people have got to say if they're open and honest about their own flaws, their own faults, but their own lives. You know, and I don't hide anything about my life other than the PIN number, because there's not enough in there to go round. You know, you don't hide anything about your life.
No.
We are able to be honest about who we are in spiritualism, which means that those that are lacking something in their life to do with a connection to God, about being fulfilled, who are the same as us, accused of being, you know, abominations,
Other
of
than,
being
yeah.
other than the norm, you know, they can actually say, well, hang on a minute. And it does, I'm sure you've had it, you have that initiation of a conversation.
Well,
how can you be an archbishop? You're gay. How
yeah.
can you be wearing a dog collar because you talk to dead people? You know,
Yeah.
and it starts a conversation.
Well, look at why I invited you to come and talk to the Rainbow Project. Hello, baby.
Yes.
Because people had, when I'd become involved with the Rainbow Project, people had started watching my services and they were like, hang on a minute, hang on, you're a minister and yet you come to the Rainbow Project, you're openly gay, you chat, you seem normal, you've only got one head, you know, how is that? And I thought, hang on, we need to get Nick on.
Yeah.
And you did. You came on and you gave people comfort and you gave people that connection. Claire, who has been commenting tonight, said she suddenly thought, actually, yeah, you know, religion might be for me because it's this fun evening where we sit and we have a chat and it's lovely and it feels warm and fuzzy and you know it feels normal to have somebody saying, well, yes, we believe in God, we believe in Jesus Christ as our Savior, and we also believe that you can be you and you can hear from your loved ones and you can receive guidance and you can receive and we've built this community and it's beautiful and it's rewarding and it's all things and it's religion as it should be.
Yes.
As it should be. End of.
Yeah.
Full stop there. Because I don't need to go on. Because it is.
Because it is a tool. It is a tool
Yeah.
that is used by equally and fairly by all.
Yeah.
It's a vessel.
She wants to say hello.
Hello, sweetie.
Hello, Pippin. She says, this is normally the time where you're saying good night and I can pop up and say hello. Yeah, it is. And it has brought comfort. And even if it's brought comfort to one person, we've done our bit. We've done our bit. But
absolutely,
I feel a lot of good things coming. And especially because, I mean, I was thinking, especially for my experience and my church, online church, it's starting to feel like I'm on that precipice again, and I'm getting a in the back saying, "Come on, come on, come on! It's time to reinvent it. It's time to move." And yeah, it's down to the congregations and spirit where we go, and it's interesting. It's interesting. We have as long as it takes, Jeremy. That's an interesting question because, like the Saturday socials, it's advertised 1 till 3. We're there at 6 o'clock, still chatting. It's, it is what it is.
The thing, we're supposed to be out of the village hall by 10 o'clock. It's usually we're getting the last person out of the door at 10 o'clock, and we have to be really, really quiet and lock up. But one of the things I think, Reverend Lynn's views on pop songs aside, one of the songs that I do keep hearing in the back of my head, and it echoes what you said, is I'm picking up good vibrations. It's giving me excitation. And there's always got to be a song in anything I do. But I really do believe that the people are taking back the power. And even within our own beloved spiritualism, which, considering its youngness in its modern state, has still got the same problems that were happening 60 years after Jesus's ministry. People trying to make out that you have to do it their way rather than your own way. In the 5 or 6 years that Pat's been a spiritualist, bearing in mind that she's only in her late 30s, I think it would be fair to say, would I not be right, that everything has changed, but nothing has changed within spiritualism.
Yeah.
And I've only been a spiritualist 20 years, but even I can see that everything has changed, but it's still the same problems, it's still the same issues, just constantly reinventing them. And again, it's always people at the heart of it. I mean, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel quietly confident that I'm right, that it's the same rubbish over and over and over again, just with a different name on it.
Yeah. Oh gosh, oh dear. I've seen that a lot. That people, the churches that aren't doing quite so well, you can see that the pattern within them, and you think, well, I can actually see what's going on there. But Shane, who's quite new to this, he says, "Can I just say?" I'll put it up.
Yeah.
There we go. Can I just say you have a closer list of people who pass, but people who say they don't believe in mediumship can stand at talk at gravesides asking why I can't talk to you again. Yeah, well, you can, They are standing next to you at the graveside saying, why are you talking to me here? I'm with you at home, I'm with you, And yeah, it's true. It's true, Shane.
It is. I have to admit, the most, and I use the term loosely, really, really loosely, but the funniest thing that's ever happened to me in a cemetery was there was somebody doing exactly that. They'd lost something that belonged to that individual, and they were saying, why won't you tell me where it is? Why won't you tell me where it is? And from the moment I'd walked into the gates of the cemetery, the person who they was claiming weren't telling them where it is was telling me to tell them where it is. Now, the fortunate thing is that I knew this person, and excuse the derogatorization, but the person turned round and saw me walking down the path, and this was their response. Did he bloody tell you to come and see me? And without even a beat, I just turned around. He said to look so-and-so. And their face just dropped, because They know who I am. They know what I do. They're not overly convinced, as most people can be, which is fine. But they're stood talking to this person in the ground, pleading for an answer. Then this person walks in with the answer. They say, "Oh, did they send it to you?" You actually give them the answer, and then their face drops. It's this roller coaster of misunderstandings, really, that we are something that we're not, when all we are is human beings with a naughty sense of humour.
Bye, Simon, and have a good week yourself, matey.
I love your words, Simon. Thank you for taking part and sharing them, actually, because they were brilliant.
Oh, and Jean's saying good night, love, to him as well. But and actually, she's just sat over there.
I'm being very quiet.
You are. You're being very quiet, darling.
I'm being very nosy.
You are, but you're very welcome. And I'm so looking forward to a chat with Patricia this week.
Yes, that's coming.
Maybe tomorrow afternoon. Maybe watch for my Facebook. Sorry, getting a plug in there.
Can I ask Nick something? Have you ever taken a funeral service and felt the person who passed by your side? I have. Many times. And when I've been writing up, you can see the family writing up a tribute to the experiences of them, and I'll suddenly get them talking to me. Well, what about such and such a thing? And I have to ring them up and say, I believe you had an experience in such a place and this happened. Oh yes, never thought of that. So they helped me to write the tribute.
2 seconds.
Yes.
It's getting dark.
It's all right. Me and Pat, in actual fact, the last time that happened was my father's funeral, because I took it for him this year. The time before that was my friend Andy, who was actually an atheist in his life, not anymore, mind you. But the time before that was our Reverend Wendy, and she wrote her service. We all sat round the table, and we'd all made notes. And I'd made my notes based off what Wendy had told me. And when we all basically put them together, they were all the same. In actual fact, I will just share this story as proof that even when it's someone close to you, you can learn something new by them. When it was my dad's funeral, we had to talk about music. Now, there was always going to be two pieces that were easy. Apache by the Shadows to come into, and Mr. Blue Sky by Yellow to leave. But I said to Mum, we need a proper hymn. Now, my dad was religious in his own way. My dad was philosophical in his own way, as many who know him would know. But I'd never really known of his own personal faith, especially in a traditional sense. What I did know was that he was in the Boys' Brigade when he was a kid. What I didn't know was that the Boys' Brigade was overly religious in its own right. So Mum said, well, he was in the Boys' Brigade. Why don't you have a look and see? Because I know he liked their hymn. I didn't even know that they had a hymn. So I Googled it. And the Boys' Brigade hymn was Will Your Anchor Hold?
Oh, yeah.
And it was a lovely hymn. And he worked in the rivers and in the Environment Agency. He loved the ocean and the ships. So it really, really did tie in quite nicely. So I then Googled for a version of Will Your Anchor Hold? Because we weren't allowed to sing at the time. So it had to be, recorded words. There was only one version that was appropriate, and it was the top of the list. Now, you remember, Pat, before the service, we were talking about where I am in Cambridgeshire, and that I'm 4 miles away from a place called Ely. Well, Ely is a city only because it has a cathedral. Ely Cathedral is a big old, quite well-known place.
Yeah.
Will Your Anchor Hold, sung to commemorate the anniversary of the RNLI by the Ely Cathedral Boys Choir. And so the Ely Cathedral Boys Choir sung at my dad's funeral because he chose his own hymn. And that's the point. I learned something new about my dad but I also got some spiritual input and evidence from it. And then lo and behold, he has to, typical dad, he has to stick one in my eye and not say, not only there you go, but here's a local choir singing it for you as well.
Yeah.
And so, you know, because I hadn't thought about that in a couple of months, actually. So thank you for bringing that up, Pat, because it inspired me.
Go on.
I'll say it's all right to me. I don't want to butt in. Well, I do really.
But you're on screen, so
Right.
speak.
Many years ago, when just after I came into spiritualism, I came in for no reason. I just got the urge that I didn't even know what they did. I just wanted to go. And I had a dream. And I was working in my local park behind three figures. They were wearing robes, and I knew the center one was Jesus. And all I know, I was walking in his footsteps. Now, that is, to me, when I can be as good a healing channel as him, I'll be okay. When I can give philosophy as well as him, I'll be doing all right. And I mean, clairvoyance and his materialization, I mean, who can match it? And that's it. But I think the only thing we need, you've got all these man-made rules that come into different religions, and you only need one. Love one another, help one another, serve one another. That's the only one we need, right? So get rid of the barriers. But you and Tony were saying about spiritualism coming. I have said for more years than I can remember that one day spiritualism will come into its own when the world really needed it, when it needs to renew. But we're going down that pathway pretty fast now, and it's scary. And I'm frightened, scared, let's say, upset for the future generations. But we need proper mediums, not psychics. We want proper mediums. And I do stick my neck out a lot of times about this. I am not a perfect medium. I have a lot to learn still. And the more I know, the less I know.
Yeah.
But every experience I've gone through, every bad experience, again, has been a learning curve.
Yeah.
It's been, you either ignore it and you get it again later, or you learn from it and you can move forward. And it's up to you as an individual, the free will. That's it. And it doesn't matter whether you say it's God, it's Allah, whether Jesus or Muhammad are the sons of them. What does it matter? We all, as you said again, we all get to the same place. Doesn't matter which bus you catch, you go to the same depot. And
absolutely.
That's what matters. So, that was lovely.
You've been wanting to get that off your chest for a while, ain't you, Pat?
Pat made an important point there. She acknowledged she makes mistakes. She acknowledged the more you learn, the less you know.
Because I can guarantee, based on what I know of Pat, and we've only known each other like an hour and 26 minutes, what I can guarantee is that Pat will have never stood there and tried to pass off telling someone about themselves as mediumship, because that is psychic work, and that proves nothing. If you can replace psychic with cold reading, you can do that in any kind of way, shape or form. What's the point? You cannot replace mediumship with some fakery or trickery unless you have got a hard wire into the brain of the individual or know absolutely everything about them. Because I don't put my whole life on Facebook. People think I do, but I really, really don't. I've got several Facebook and several TikTok and several Twitter accounts that reflect the various different aspects of my life, but because I like to keep things separate. Behave, Tony Swindles, what's it, you? But the point is, people would never know everything about. People think they know everything about everybody. The only person that knows everything about you is you, and those that watch over you from spirit. And that is how you can use mediumship to prove it. You cannot prove mediumship. You cannot prove survival by saying, I've noticed that you've got a bit of a bad back lately, darling. and as soon as you hear the phrase, they're telling me, in front of a psychic reading, that's when I get angry. I'm fine with people using psychic so long as they explain that's what they're doing and why they're doing it. But to turn around and say they are telling me, and then it's obvious that they are doing psychic work, that's fake.
Yeah.
There's a difference between using one thing again as a tool of mediumship, where it can sometimes help you get a link better. It can help you dive in when you're having a bit of a struggle. I've got no problem with that. What I will not tolerate is people passing off, as you said, Pat, psychism for mediumship, because you cannot prove survival when you are reading the person in front of you. And I'll put my
I get into lots of trouble for saying that, to speaking out. I even told the president of the union about it. The SNU, I said, I've only got one boss. I'll follow the SNU, all the rules, but I've only got one boss, and that's up there. And if I've got to speak about any religion, if I speak about my Christian upbringing, or bring it comes in automatically, whether they like it or not. And that's it. Spirit will have their way if you allow them to do it, to give good help, good advice, good guidance. You both said about personal responsibility. Well, you have. It's your life. You get the chance to do good, you get the chance to go the other way. Whatever you are, you're loved by spirit, you're loved by God, you're loved by the spirit world that's tried to guide you for so long. And yet, you go off that main road and they think, oh my God, they've gone down another dead end. They've got to get back to that main road and go forward again. And it's but we do what we can.
We have, and we were talking coming down to the caravan today in the car, and we were talking about a service we'd done last night, and there was a couple of readings that really stood out where they said, you're even standing like my dad, or you're even walking like my grandma.
Yeah.
And that's because we work through spirit. We reach to spirit and say, please help us in this service. Please, like I say at the beginning of my service, I ask my guides and Jean's guides and Irene's guides to step forward to inspire and support us through this short time. And Jean taught me, your first job, prove your link. Prove who you're working with beyond a doubt. Give your message and get out.
Yeah.
Get it, get out.
Yeah. And if it takes you 10 minutes of your message to prove that you're working with that person's loved one, and all they say is, you're doing really well, son, and leave, that's your message.
Yeah, because that might mean something special to that person.
Yeah.
And Lynn was very similar. She always said to us, give 3 solid pieces of information. Identity, condition of passing, and then something else like a memory link.
Yeah.
Everything else is just embellishment, because people aren't going to remember it. They're going to remember 3 solid pieces of information. A perfect example, my mum had a message a few weeks back. Thank you, Peter. But it's them, not me. Mum had a message and it was brilliant, but she couldn't remember any of it. So she had to come home and watch it online to remind herself of it. We remembered the 3 important pieces of information. I think that's another thing that sometimes we tend to go, and I know I totally, because I'm just as bad, I'm not criticizing, but sometimes we can go on too long with one link. We labour the point and end up tripping over ourselves. When if it's in, it's out and done, it's effective.
That's Pat's pet peeve.
Yeah.
Don't give a personal sit-in on a rostrum.
Yes,
And if you're working with somebody, get them to give you a nudge. Or sometimes it's been me. So you lose track of time.
I've done it. I've worked with Pat before, and I've had to pull on the back of a blouse like that and go, "Come on, sit down now."
Yeah,
we did a demonstration in Wisbeach. There was like 5 of us. There was Lynn, Kathy, myself. There was Shelley Yule and Arthur Wright. We did this demonstration, and she had a little bell. And at the end of our 10 minutes, she rung the bell. And if she had to ring it again, you were in trouble.
Yeah.
And this was the thing. And this is why I enjoyed doing what we did online, because I had control. I had the bell. I could press mute, and
yeah,
I've got a bell.
There you go. So you're coming on the 10th of October. Keep everyone in check.
See that little button there, Pat?
Yeah. That's
wonderful. I can switch us off. And I can switch Nick off. Look there, shut him up. But no, I completely agree. But you see, Jean sometimes counters that with, but that person needs it. Yeah, fine. And sometimes they do. Sometimes there is a sitter in the church who does require that more in-depth reading.
Yeah.
And you have to spend that little bit more time with them, because at that point in their time, they do need that guidance. But that's not going to be in every service.
And it's not going to be every single recipient either.
No.
I mean, one of the things that I used to love, we had this medium, I can't remember his name now, but he was awkward. He was frustrating, and that was what made him brilliant. Because I learned something as a chair massively from him. And it's affected me from that moment right the way through the whole time I chair for the last half a dozen years. I would say to him, just one more, when we'd got about 10 minutes left. And it's just one more? No. And he would get in 10 people in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Wow.
Because he would give 2 pieces of information to one person a minute, so he would, okay, would you understand this person? Would you understand that they were this? Would you understand that they did this? And literally the 3 pieces of information. Would you understand that? Okay, God bless you. Thank you for working with me. Moving to
a minute.
Because his point was, don't ever tell me that there's just one more. So from that point on, I would say 15 minutes. If they wanted to get 2 people in, if they wanted to get 1 person in that 15 minutes, as a medium and working with spirit, that was up to them then. But I learned that I was being wrong by saying just one more, you've got 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And, the way he worked is he would spend his first 5 messages about 7 or 8 minutes at a time. The last one before I said just one more was always the longer one, the one that needed that more in-depth poignance. And it was always the poignant one. And then I'd pipe up with my just one more, and it's all right, stuff you, I'm not having it. I'm gonna get as many people as I can in this 10 minutes with just 3 pieces of information. But do you know what? Every single time he was in that church, whether there was 10, whether there was 30, whether there was 40 people in that hall, every single person would have a message of some description, be it a 5-minute reading, a 10-minute reading, or just this 60-second, 3 items of information. They got something. And I thought it was good. So from that point on, I've always said 15 minutes, not just one more. You've got 15 minutes.
Yeah. That's a good way of doing it. But I think we've sort of come right round and back to the beginning again of we've wrapped it up in a nice little bow. It's lovely. But what I think I want people to take away from this is we're just at the beginning. It's a beginning. 1. It's an exciting time because Spirit have told Nick and myself that we're heading somewhere and we're on the same page.
Yes.
And that's interesting and exciting because it's making me think, oh, but what's coming and what are we going to do and where are we going to go? And with this philosophy that we've both been talking about, this direction, this ethos that obviously we've been told about, where's it going to go? That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And it's led by the most important people in the church: Spirit, God, and the congregation. You know, and that's marvelous. I love it. I really love it. Hey,
You know, Tony, I just as you're speaking, I had a vision of the old days when the farmer used to have the big sack of seed, and he's doing this, he's sowing out, throwing the seeds out. Some fell on stony ground
and didn't grow.
and did grow, but the others did. They were ready to grow. The spirit was ready to open up to the teachings. And all we can do with other people that are not ready is send love and healing to all who are not, perhaps, let's say, the souls are not ready to understand or see what we term as goodness and love for mankind and all life. Not just mankind.
No. All life.
All life. Yeah.
Everything is connected to the divine. Everything. Because everything is energy. And energy can't be destroyed. It can be changed. And it's actually, I've just seen his name, Peter. I attended Peter's classes. And that was one of Peter's teachings, that your soul, your energy has to be ready for that journey.
That's right.
And if you're not, we can teach and we can throw out words and we can do whatever we can do, and they'll never move because they're not ready to take that step. I walked into the Spiritualist church. Jean gave me a message and said, they're telling you this is your time. If you're not ready for it, you don't want it, that's fine. This is your time. This is your moment. And I said, come on then. And I just gave myself heart, soul and body to the journey. And I'm here. I never wanted to be a rostrum medium. Never wanted to be a minister. I wanted to be a healer. Spirit thought, hey, that's what you want, but no. You know, and for some reason they chose me for this path, and I'll do my best. I will give as much as I can give, but saying that, I will give as much as I can, but we need the people sat in front of us to be giving as much as they can as well. And it's two-way street, isn't it? It's two-way street.
But I can say to you, Tony, you say you want to be a healer. You are a healer. You heal with words. And that's the thing. You heal with words. You can bring comfort. You can bring that love and that knowledge that you haven't lost anybody. No. You haven't lost them. You're there. Well, you're giving that love to them, and you're giving that healing energy. And you can only do that healing energy with love.
Yes.
And you're doing it, and you help to heal the souls of it.
Even in if I'm chosen to do the closing prayer at a service, I will always ask for any energy that we've generated to go around the world to those who are sick, those in need, those who are taking their transition. May there be love, light and family to guide them safely over. And I always say, and I'm very careful, and for those who grieve, may there be comfort and support. Not those who are left behind, not those who have lost, not because you haven't lost anything. You've not been left anywhere. Your loved one is still there around you watching, and it's just they're not incarnate. And
exactly.
And I think that is it. And yeah, and that, there we are. We're off again.
I will say this much. I will say this much. If you guys can come in October, I would gladly give up for 1 week only my philosophy spot at the beginning of the service.
No.
I would give that up to Pat.
Wow.
Oh.
Nick always
Thank
does the
you.
address and the philosophy.
Does
Always.
he?
Yes, always.
And I would gladly give that up to you, my love, because, you know,
we would do
yes.
our best. I'll do there, I'll open my mouth, and they'll give the words for whether it's
And this
a
is
trade
my point.
union meeting or a spiritual one. They'll give them what you need.
Yeah. And that's
This
the
is
thing
it.
with
This is
prayer.
my point. Sandra, that's not fair. I do know how to be silent. I just choose not to. The point is, you know, I'm getting ready to jump on you to say, but you are a healer, Tony. And Pat beats me to it because it's true. Because, you know, the lady doth not protest. She speaks the truth. And
Yeah,
this is the
does.
point. You know, I got into a habit of doing the philosophy myself for two reasons. Number one, because I love philosophy. Number two, because there are so many people who are coming through as mediums these days who I don't like the philosophy.
Oh, yeah.
I struggle with the philosophy. The difference is some people think they struggle with the philosophy, and I'll help them. Those that don't want to do the philosophy are more about those group of people we were talking about earlier, and shall remain nameless because I'm trying to be polite. But the point is, the third reason I love philosophy is because I don't know when to shut up. I never have done. And they will just make use of that because they will just keep it flowing. So, you know, I reckon that one day we should just hire a hall, me and Pat, 2 spotlights down into with some comfy chairs, and we can video that. You can be the invigilator, Tony, and we can put the world to rights without guarantees.
What I can see is I do 3 services a week, which is a lot. And I can see maybe 2 services a week and a philosophy night or something where people can get to share their philosophy, share their inspirations. And I think that's important. That is important because we have got a generation coming up of people who, well, we don't do prayers and we don't do the Lord's Prayer, and we do an hour of talk and call it mediumship, and then we, excuse my French, bugger off home till next time. And what? You know, what? Because
this and I've got to say this. I've got to get this in before the end, because this is one of my pet hates, one of my pet peeves. It's also the reason I am writing the book, because I am absolutely sick and tired of people trying to change spiritualism from what it is to what they think it should be to get asses on seats. Sick of it. I'm done with it. I have fought hammer and tong in Little Paw with the people that are here with me, working with me, helping me, being my congregation, coming and supporting it week in, week out, to keep spiritualism as to what it is. And they keep coming back because of that. I was told at the beginning a Christian spiritualist church would not work. We were pointless. Religion was on the way out. You can't call it a church. You've got to call it a center. You can't have prayers. You've got to have affirmations. You can't have hymns. You've got to have pop songs. You can't have philosophy. You've got to have some writing. Stop trying to change something into something that it isn't. Spiritualism is a religion. There are 7 principles for modern spiritualism, 8 principles for Christian spiritualism. The first principle of both is the fatherhood of God. End of. That makes it a religion. Anyone who has a problem with that, you're not a spiritualist. You're still welcome, but stop just trying to change everything to suit the need to put bums on seats, because the bums will come when they need to come.
Yeah.
And we will be there for them, and we will welcome everyone in. We will be there for everyone, and we will accept the people. I have no problem with people wanting to call it a center for themselves, but don't tell me that spiritualism is not a religion, because it is. It was founded by Methodists, 3 sisters of Fox.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely,
it
it's
is
religion.
a religion. And you look for the definition of religion, something to do with a deity. The fatherhood of God. Hello. So stop trying to change things, accept what they are, but
Yeah.
make use of it in the right way. Stop
But
trying to call a spade a digging device.
if
It's a waste of time.
if you don't want the religious part of sorry, calm, Nick. There is a place for these. I don't want to say it because it caused a fracas last time. Entertaining sessions of mediumship.
Put it cabaret.
Yes, cabaret style
Really, yeah.
mediumship, where you go to a pub, you get a pint, you sit there, this guy comes on, girl comes on, whoever. I've got your grandma, daddy, daddy, da, and it's all jazz hands. That's fine. Go pay, see that. That's wonderful. Hello, you
Yeah.
know, and
And, and
we're
don't get
not
me
that.
wrong,
I've done it. I've done it. I've worked in clubs. I've worked in pubs. It's not for me. It's not for me. For me, spirit and spirit don't mix.
yeah.
And
I mean, don't get me wrong. You're right. There are places for them, and certainly where we live, there is a wide range of groups and centres and churches that meet. You know, they all appeal to a certain group and give that truth to those individuals. But on the same vein, do not come into a place where I spend a lot of my own money keeping going for a while, you know, and tell me that I cannot use spiritualism as a religion. It is a religion. It's there
absolutely,
as a religion. There are aspects of our religion that are part of other walks of life, and I accept that. And I've served groups like that and had really, really great nights. And you know what? Sometimes it's nice to just turn up in a shirt and tie, let my hair down, and be naughty. And I don't mean swear, I just mean be naughty. You know, whereas in a religious service, I have to be slightly more measured. I'm only allowed to say bugger twice. You know, you know, but it's
about the 14th, Nick. I'm busy.
don't worry. I'll bring my brush and I'll just whack you on the back of the legs with it when you say it the
Can
third
I
time.
just make a point as well?
Go on.
All mediums, I stand up there on that platform and I tell people all mediums are not good people. Mediums are a channel that spirit will use. Let's say God needs one of my sayings is what my husband used to say, that when God needs to water the flowers of his garden, if he's got a nice shiny watering can, he'll use it. But if not, he will use a rusty one to get his message across. And my
I like that.
used to say that. That's Jean's dad. And we worked together for many years. But also, the one thing Tony and I spoke about as another thing is, oh, wait a minute, let me finish this bit, I forgot. I've talked about people going to church, and if they come, and when I talk about mediums and I talk about the congregations, if they want to come and bring a bag of crisps and an orange, then I'm sorry, they're in the wrong place. And I do know somebody that literally opened a bag of crisps while the medium was speaking. And if looks could have killed, I'd have killed her, you know, and the medium as well would have. But total ignorance of what it is about. What really, you know, it just there's such a lot needed, such a lot of
Yeah.
healing needed in this world.
There is.
And
There is.
let me
Amen.
another thing. I'm sorry,
No,
Tony.
go on. Go on. Go for it, Pat. That's why
We
you're on.
talked about the 7 principles and whatever principles, and the 7th one in the SNU is the continuation of every human soul. It's not every human soul; it's every soul.
Oh, yeah.
And everything
We
like
did.
is
We talked
living.
about that.
And if you've got your dogs, your cats, your horses, anything you love, that's gone to spirit, they'll be there. And if mine aren't there, there's going to be trouble when I get there.
Yep.
Yep.
If my tea is not waiting for me as
That's
I
right,
walk
yeah.
through those gates, I will kick off. And my paddy was lovely.
Mm.
I had a border collie called Paddy. He was my best mate. He was gorgeous. But Pat's right. Churches are churches, and there's a wherever two gather in my name, I shall be there. And we have to have a respect for spiritualism and a respect for spirit, and with that respect comes trust. And we trust spirit to lead us to where we need to be, not necessarily where we need to be, not where we want to be. But yeah, that's what this whole chat has been about tonight, is about what point religion, and I think we've just covered it.
In actual fact, I think there is one particular quote in that chapter where it explains that it's perceived these days that anything that has any amount of discipline is bad.
Yes.
Well, that's not true. Such disciplines as good manners and not opening up a packet of crisps and crunching away through a demo. Such things as being polite and being courteous. That is a discipline. A discipline is about having an element of self-control for the benefit of others.
Yeah.
That's never going to be bad. That's never going to be bad. The danger is when you are told to sacrifice your own principles, your own ideals, and to stop being yourself for that discipline. That is then not discipline, that is dictatorship. And that has no place in priest or pulpit. It has no place in God or heaven, and it will never have a place in spiritualism so long as I draw breath or walk the halls of spirit. So hopefully that will be a long time on both counts.
Yes.
But, there's a difference between discipline and dictatorship. Discipline in its best form is self-control. Dictatorship is when you have no control. And that's just wrong. And there is no place for that in any philosophical or religious or faith-based way of life. Thank you for that. I'm being dictated to, but only in terms of say this or you'll get it wrong.
Thank you.
Yes.
Michael's watching, bless him. He's made some comments going up, and bravo, Michael. You always have the right tone of things to say. Bless you, dear. Hope you've had a good day, babes. I'll ring you in a moment. But yeah, and I know, Nick, you sit in the background of my services sometimes, and we do have a laugh. We have a laugh, and we have chat, and we have banter, and we can skate the line sometimes. I know we do, especially when sometimes a certain Canadian medium comes on the comment. But it's respectful, I hope.
Yeah.
Always respectful, and always toned to a certain degree. And we do have that self-control and restraint, and we know when to take a breath and then start afresh in the right tone. And I think that's why we work so well as an organisation, because we understand that we are human and we are fallible and we are
filthy minded,
but a part of the divine. And
yes, yeah.
And
all joking aside, it's essential to do that, And even the Bible says, make a loud noise and be joyful. Well, when we get off going, we definitely are loud. We do make a noise and we are joyful. But
We
you
are
know
joyful.
what? It means that we're being ourselves, and people can see through a false facade. And if you're holding back from being yourself, you are going to lose your congregation. You're going to lose the trust of people that need you, and need you to be you. And this is the point. You can't help people if you haven't experienced it. Hello, Mum.
Hello, Mum Brown.
Mama Brown. But yeah, you can't hide who you are. You can't suppress who you are, because in order to help people, they need to see that you're real.
Yeah.
Somebody once said to me, when I was first made a minister, and then again when I was made a bishop, they gave up asking the question when I became an archbishop, because they knew me too well then. But they said, does that mean you're going to stop smoking and swearing and being dirty? And I said, no.
Not.
I got this position by being me, and I'm not going to stop being me and putting on all the airs and graces and being false just because someone's given me a title. I said about titles at the beginning. Rewind and have a look. I'm not going to say it again because we'll be here all night. But the point is, I'm not going to stop being me just because I've earned a position. I earned that position by being me. So it's all the more important that I carry on doing that. So yes, I will drop a B-bomb now and again. I will go outside after the service and have a chat and a fag with the congregation. You know, I will have a very small, large whiskey on a Sunday afternoon after work if I'm not working the next day. But I don't drink anywhere near as much as I used to. And I you know, I will be naughty and use double entendre because I love it. I like that, and Susan's point is also very, very, you know.
Yeah.
I think validating, that is our validation. We give validation of mediumship. That is the validation that we need to know that we're doing something of use. You know, that there's a good balance of humour and seriousness.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You can't help people by lying to yourself or anyone else.
Absolutely can't. And I think it's just a testament to our congregation, really, that they turn up week after week after week, and it grows. And like Nick said earlier, and Pat as well, that we give our truth to the congregation and hope that they then go on and pass on that truth. And that's all we can do. And I'll do it as long as people need me to do it. And like I always say at the end of my services, and if you ever need us, we'll always be here for you. Through the good times and the bad.
Yes, definitely. And if anybody wants to read, and not that I'm trying to get you views or hits or anything, Tony, but if anybody wants to read that chapter that we've been talking about tonight, it's on your website.
www.tonyswindlesmedium.com. blog section, it's the big blog with a picture of Nick going into a microphone.
Only it's like that rather than like that.
Yeah,
that was. I went on a radio show where they, on a Sunday afternoon, did that. Basically, it was like ghost tales, and they invited me on to be on there and talk about spiritualism and everything. And Lynn was supposed to be doing it, but she sent me instead, and I had a whale of a time. And he introduced me to the Age of Aquarius music.
Oh, yes.
When the moon is in a center house and Jupiter aligns with Mars. And I loved it. It was great. It was good fun. It was really, really good fun. And that's where where I got a taste for not being able to shut my gob, especially when one of these is in front of it, you know.
Yeah.
There are no donkeys with hind legs in Littleport because I talked them off too. So there's just rolling donkeys in Littleport now. But I don't. They don't mind because there aren't any hills, so they don't get lost.
Michael has to ask how Lady Pat is finding being broadcast across the internet.
Well, it was a bit strange and scary at first, but once we started, I wanted to be there with you.
Yeah.
It's like being on the platform. Once you start, the spotlight goes on. Let's say spirit come in, and that's it. And your self-consciousness and everything goes out of the window. And all you want to do is, I'll have the other two hind legs off the donkey.
Jane, can you imagine how long a service would be if we left it to these two? It's already been 2 hours and 2 minutes.
And somebody's mentioned that when you have them two on together.
No. And I suddenly, Mr. Archbishop, His Most Reverend Brown, have realised why Reverend Lynn said, "No, dear, it's a one-on-one." She did.
We don't even get you through the introduction.
I did invite Reverend Lynn to be part of this discussion. She said, "No, dear, I don't think that's a good idea."
Yes, she did.
And now I know why.
I remember that.
Yeah. She's very clever on that. It's seriously, if she'd, as much as it was a brilliant idea and I would have loved it, we would only now be doing the introduction or the opening prayer.
We would.
Because we just wouldn't have got started yet. Lynn and I, even though we are from very different backgrounds, we're from very different generations, we're from very different upbringings, we've both got very different experiences. We just got this click where we know what each other is thinking. We're on the same page. I mean, let's put it this way: she's a lady of a certain age in her 60s. Who has lived a very full life. When you look at my life, very full. In my in comparison, my life might not seem as full, but it's been full for me and full enough for me. But we do come from very different backgrounds, and yet we both have this same passion, this same interest, the same need, the same desire, and the same will. And there was a time when I used to go, I will say, the first ever circle I attended with Lynn, I got in so much trouble. It started at 7. It was supposed to finish at 9:30. At midnight, Dad was banging on Lynn's door to find out if I'd left the house yet. Because we hadn't left. We were still going. And, and every time I go round Lynn's, I say to the other half, I'm just going to nip round Lynn's. I'll be about an hour. And the answer always comes, yeah, right. See you in 3. Yeah. Because we both set each other off. She'll say something that inspires me to say something. I'll say something that she feels the need to correct. And that is exactly why she was unfortunately right to decline a threesome. Because it would have ended up being a foursome, which would have been even better, but she was right. In fairness, we would never have got finished.
We've already gone 2 hours and 5 minutes, 6 minutes, but
doesn't feel like it though, does it?
No, and it's
it might be the people watching, to be fair.
Yeah, but we still have people watching, which is amazing, absolutely amazing. And I just want to say a huge thank you, Nick, for coming on and sharing this with us, because it is an important subject, and I know they are telling me this isn't the last time we'll visit this particular thing, and I am being kicked and said this should be discussed on a more frequent basis, because it's important, and people beyond our circles need to hear this message loud and proud and clear. Because
the good news is I've got another 12 chapters to go through.
Well, there are organisations that need to hear this. That commercial mediumship has its place. This isn't it. This isn't it. And thank you so much. I know, Sandra, we could talk all night. I know we could, because there are still things I want to say and need to say, but let's not flog the horse. Let's lead it. And we will get there. And like I said, I think an evening of philosophy once a week, as well as 2 services, is the way to go. And let's see what happens. I of course, we are led by you guys in spirit, but at the minute, this is what spirit are telling me we need to do. So let's see what happens. And again, Nick, thank you so much for sharing this with us.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
It's
look. I'll be brutally honest. I've been writing this book for about 12 years. The chances of it ever being properly published get less and less every moment. But if the message of the book is out there, that's all that matters. I'd love to be able to say I've wrapped it in a pretty cover and stuck it on a shelf somewhere. But the point is, what really matters is that it's not on the shelf, it's in people's hearts. And if we can drip feed the word of spirit and those messages of hope and support and love and comfort, and a time limit, that's the point. That is all that really, really matters. In all fairness.
It is. And the point, I think, is, and with the greatest respect to everybody who's watching, and to Nick and to Pat and to Jean who's standing here, we're preaching to the choir here.
Yeah, we are.
We're preaching to the choir. What we need is for you guys to be out there singing it to the people who aren't necessarily on the same page as us. And that's what we need. Oh, Jean, Suzanne's waiting for your singing song.
Oh, bless her. I have to do my singing song.
Well, if I do a closing prayer, Jean could nip in and do a singing song.
Yes. And I will say this: you don't physically have to sing.
No,
I'm not talking about Jean. I'm talking about what I'm talking about. No, I'm talking about what Tony said about us preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
You guys going out and singing it. There's an easy way of doing that without being tuneful. It's called like and share. Seriously, just share these videos with people on your profile, on your Facebook. I know people say that as a way to get likes and shares and everything. We're not about that. We're about getting the message out. And if one person spends 5 minutes watching one of these videos and takes something positive from it, then you have done your job.
Absolutely. And it isn't about likes and shares, because being brutally honest, the only time I use my Facebook page is tonight, because I don't go on it. I don't, because apart from if I don't want to be accused of, well, you read that on my Facebook profile. Well, I didn't, because I don't go on. So there you go.
But the sharing part is about getting the message out.
It's about you guys getting this message out there to people, and the best way you can do it at the minute is through just share this video. Just click share on your profile and away you go. And the number of people who've dropped into our services by, well, actually my friend shared it, so I've just come on to see what it's about, but hey, really good, really enjoying it, that's what it's about. And yes, Michael, we always know why we're at a church, because there's that one person that gets that one message and you think, yeah, you've got it and you've heard it, and away you go. But seriously, sir, thank you so much for this, because I feel so uplifted now. I do, and I feel like, to quote Avenue Q, I can see a purpose out there, not a dolphin, a purpose. You know, Avenue Q, Muppets for Adults.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's wonderful.
It's brilliant.
And the internet is for this, not what they say it is. But if I can close this evening off with a prayer, please, and then sing a song, we'll sing a song. Could we just share a moment together, please, friends? Great Spirit, Father, Mother, God, thank you so much for this evening. Thank you for the inspiration that's come through, and I hope this message reaches everybody who needs to hear it. I now ask that you take back everything which is rightfully yours, and any energy we've created go out to the world, to the places you know it's needed, Father, to those who are sick and suffering, to those who are taking their transition. May there be love and light to guide them safely home, and comfort and support to those who grieve. I now hand back to you everything which is rightfully yours, with love, with honour and glory. Amen. Go, girl.
Go. Lord, keep us safe this night, secure from all our fears. May angels guard us while we sleep, till morning light appears. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Night,
Good night, and God
everybody.
bless.
Night.
God bless.
God bless, Nick. See you soon.